I've been waiting far too long. I was so hyped to finally sit down and watch this series, and finally managing to actually get on the site. I finally sat down and watched it. Yeah, no joke. I could not get on the site all day today. Like, the site kept freaking crashing all day. It just goes to show you how many wanted to sit down and watch RWBY, the new episode of RWBY. I mean, there is a big fan base. I mean, just crashing the site as soon as the episode comes out, you know it's popular. And so when I finally managed to sit down and watch the first episode of Season 4, oh my goodness, what I witnessed in this episode. Like, before I get into the content, let's just talk about that opening song, okay? And that's what I want to talk about first. You remember what I've been talking about in the past 2 volume reviews I've done of RWBY? I've talked about how RWBY is building up for a darker path, for, you know, a war, an eventual war that's going to be big and change the atmosphere or the theme of the series. You remember how I was talking about that quite a while? Even in volume 2, I was talking about this where I did reviews. Well, it finally happened. The tone shift of this season is completely different from the previous 3 seasons of RWBY. Season 3 had a little bit of a tone shift. It went a little bit darker, especially with the final episodes. I mean, look what happened to Pyrrha. Still sad about that. But the point stands is that this has slowly been built up to this point of a tone shift, to where it's a lot darker. And when that opening song starts, okay? Now, to be honest, I don't know the exact order of the lyrics, but I'm going to talk about, like, the message, the meaning of it, like, you know, what I got from it. So the lyrics kind of start off to where it's saying, like, we used to think it was a fairy tale, but now we know that was just a dream. It's a dream now. And the lyrics, the way it starts off with the opening song, it lets you know that everything we knew from the first 3 seasons of RWBY, it was kind of like that happy-go-lucky tone of the series, and then now we're at that darker point where it's sitting down and being more mature. It's letting us know now it's going to start cranking up that plot, letting us know all these plot points have been building up for a while is finally going to be put onto the table. So I like the difference that this season of RWBY has. I mean, just the opening song alone letting me know that, it adds my hype for this season so much higher. Like, my hype is fucking ridiculous right now. But I gotta say, in terms of the opening song, I think that's one of my favorites so far. Out of all the RWBY songs I have heard, like, you know, the individual openings, this is probably my favorite. Yeah, I'm not even joking. I like the opening song, and it felt more like an anime style to me. I don't know if it's just me, but when I was watching it, it felt like a traditional anime opening. I mean, it showcases all the characters, it showcased the villains and all that towards in the middle of it, and I mean, I like the kind of representation of the opening, and most likely it's probably because, you know, Rooster Teeth has learned over the many seasons it's done, many people in Japan love RWBY. It's grown quite popular in Japan, even has a Japanese dub going on right now, so most likely they probably made the opening a little bit more anime style because of that, but still, I like the new direction, especially with the theme and the tone and stuff, along with the new opening song. So let's cast that aside for now. So my first impressions of Season 4, so far, as you can already see, is quite positive. I have very positive impressions of it. But one of the big things that surprised me when I started this was the animation. Now, as we all know by now, RWBY is a series that is a CGI series. It's a CGI series that, you know, honestly, many people like to make fun of. Many people make fun of CGI, even myself included. I made fun of CGI every so often in the past. I mean, look at Berserk. But sometimes I can look past CGI because of a great plot, which is why I watch RWBY. I loved RWBY for its great story. It has this good cast of characters, this great build-up, great voice acting, and so that's why I watched it. And so when I started, you know, RWBY, I knew what to kind of expect. Now, when I saw the art and animation, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, the beginning of the episode, or like, you know what, fuck it, the entirety of this episode, I felt like was Rooster Teeth letting us know, as the fans, that, hey, we have upgraded the art and animation of this season, because you could see it. I mean, let's just talk about one of the big things that stood out to me, okay, when it came to the new animation direction of this season. The way the characters moved. The movement of the characters felt real. Like, not real life real, but I mean, it felt way more real than it did in the previous 3 seasons. I mean, just the way the characters carried themselves, and when you saw how they were talking, like the one character, the creepy character that was sitting in the chair and all that with his knees up and all that, and he was just laughing maniacally, that character, the way he was moving around, you could just see how much improvements the art animation got in this season, especially the way he was just moving in his chair, he was laughing and stuff, and when you just saw the way Cinder was looking, she turned, her face and all, away, when he's like an eye for an eye. Just, I mean, the direction of the animation of this season so far, way better, way beyond the other art animation I've seen so far from RWBY the first 3 seasons. Now, getting into the fights, honestly, the direction of the fight, it still is not as good without Monty, obviously. It doesn't seem like it's as quality as that was, but it's going to take a long time probably to get to that level. But I do notice that there is an improvement in, at the very least, the movement part of the fighting, especially when you saw the way the movements of the characters, the way they were going for the trees and stuff, and they were going around the fighting of this Grim. You just saw how they put a little bit more effort into that movement and just showcasing it, and not just like having to where a character moves from this point A to point B. Like, here's an example. Usually when you see a fight or something, usually in an anime, I'm just going to use an anime as a reference, okay? Usually in an anime, you would see it to where a character, they might be in a fight, and let's say, a person's on the other side of a room, okay? And our main character is about to fight him, and they're on the opposite side. Usually the fighting begins, and it's kind of like they have, like, jump cuts, if you get my point. Like, we don't get to see the character moving towards the person they're fighting. It's like, character starts charging, and all of a sudden they're at his face, and they're having, like, swords clashing or whatever. And I noticed that Rooster Teeth added in this movement to the fight in this episode. You saw how the characters were moving around, how they were fighting, what direction they were coming in at, and that added more immersion to the episode. So the direction of the fight's definitely a step up from the previous seasons as well. It's still not as good without Monty, obviously, but still, you could definitely see the improvement. So, regardless of that, let's talk about the plot now, or Cinder. That's the character I want to talk about. So Cinder's character. Is it bad I feel bad for her? Like, I gotta ask this, okay? Is it bad I feel sad for her character? Or not her character, I like the direction of her character. I mean, is it bad I feel sad for her personally? Just because she's always been this character that wants people to fear her. She wants to be respected. That's the type of persona she gives off throughout the, the series. And she was someone that's very powerful. She was smart. You just see the way she carried herself throughout the previous seasons. She was that strong. She was someone you would fear. And when the season starts off and you see this vulnerable Cinder, you don't know how to react. You're like, whoa, she really got messed up with after the, the cliffhanger with season 3, and just the way she was reacting, the way she just seemed like she was scared, or the way she just didn't want, someone to be hunted down, like eye for an eye. She seemed like she was sickened with that, or, the way she just was being made fun of by her fellow peers. It kind of makes you sad for her, because, I mean, one of the big things she wanted was to be feared and respected, and, I mean, she became the Fall Maiden. She became this all-powerful maiden that had ridiculous amount of power, and now, in a way, you could say, even though she has all this power, she's weaker than what she was. Because, look at the state she's in. She can't speak. She lost an eye. Her face is scarred, as you can see, and everyone around her kind of making fun of her or tiptoeing around her, like, her fellow acquaintances, they're kind of having to have her whisper to them for they can relay the message, and it's kind of sad when you see the way this was presented, and it adds an interesting direction for Cinder's character, because she's not just that villain we know about now through the previous season. She's not that standard villain. She's got another level to her, another layer attached to her character now that we can appreciate. And I feel like the way Rooster Teeth is going with this, they might offer some form of a redemption arc or something like that. Maybe not. I don't know if they'll go down that path. But, I mean, that's a possibility at this time. I mean, especially the way she was reacting about the eye for an eye scene, and the way she just seemed vulnerable. And, I mean, the way everybody's looking at her, the way her, her fellow peers are making fun of her, saying she's kind of useless or she failed or whatever. I mean, there's going to come a time, most likely, to where she's going to get booted out and probably killed if she doesn't prove that she's useful. And I mean, someone that is that weak, someone that can't really be as make people fear her, or someone that's that strong and respected, and she can't do that anymore, people are going to start walking all over her, and eventually they're not going to really have any respect, or they're going to cast her aside. And I mean, the people she's hanging out with obviously are not people that will be nice to her, like, you know, someone like RWBY's group would be. They'll obviously just throw her off into the trash and probably kill her. So I see a time to where either A, Cinder's going to reach a point to where she's going to get killed by Salem and everybody else because she's just no longer useful. They might try to get the Fall Maiden power from her, or we're going to have it to where she's going to try to make up to what she did in the past about what she did to Pyrrha, but also talk to RWBY and stuff, maybe go through some form of redemption. But you gotta remember, she did kill one of their friends, and so if you look at all of this, Cinder's in a really bad spot, and I like this so much. I mean, I feel bad for her, but I like the direction of her character. I have to say, out of all the things so far from this season, I'm fascinated about that the most. I mean, I like the stuff going on with John, I like the stuff going on with RWBY, Yang, Blake, all that. I like all that stuff going on, but I'm fascinated by Cinder's character, because one thing I like about any type of literature is a villain that I can respect, or a villain I understand, or a villain I can understand their motives or feel sorry for them. And so, being able to kind of understand Cinder's thought process, or at the very least how she feels right now, it makes me like her character a hell of a lot more than I did in the past. So, Rooster Teeth, I'm looking forward to what you're doing with that. I'm really looking forward to what you're doing with Cinder's character in the future. I hope that you do something unexpected, but something that's pretty damn badass. So, getting off of Cinder, let's talk about the villain round table going on. So, it's such a great way to let us know that the tone of this season is completely different. We start off with a villain meetup. Villains talking with each other about plans that Cinder supposedly failed, and eventually Salem comes in and says Cinder's useful, she's done so much, Osmond is dead, the outdoor beacon is fallen. I mean, they have plans set in motion, they're going after the Spring Maiden. You have just all this stuff being set up right now, and I mean, it's just a perfect way to introduce us to this season, letting us know that this isn't going to be your kind, happy-go-lucky kids, you know, having fun, and that's not what it's going to be like. I mean, we're going to have some funny moments here and there, especially how this episode was, but I mean, overall though, it's going to be a serious season of RWBY, and maybe for the remainder of the series. So I like the new direction Rooster Teeth is taking this, a very mature tone to it that definitely stands out from the previous seasons. So my first impressions of the villains, like the new ones that were introduced, I like the crazy one. He's my favorite. I like the crazy one. I'm a big fan of crazy characters. He might be stereotypical at this time. He doesn't seem to be anything that really stands out from the crazy type character. But I mean, hopefully he has some form of good personality to him besides just being crazy. And he has some great motives to him or something, or why he's crazy. I just hope Rooster Teeth, you know, kind of fleshes him out in a way to where I can respect his character. Because I like characters like that, because it depends on their motive of why they act crazy to why I enjoy them. Because there could be some interesting, you know, backstories to these characters. So that character, probably my favorite so far, out of all the ones that were introduced. Now, moving over into RWBY's side. So, RWBY, she's formed up with a new team, pretty much. She's no longer with, you know, Weiss, Blake, Yang. She's with a new group. She's pretty much with John's group and stuff. And it just goes to show you that our main cast, our main central four female characters, are not going to be the main spotlight in each individual episode. Like, they're not going to be in every episode. Like, for instance, Yang, Blake, and Weiss, they weren't in this episode. They were in for a time being, maybe Weiss only, but Yang and Blake, they weren't. And so we're probably going to have to get used to, for the remainder of Season 4, to where a lot of our characters are going to be split up. Maybe we'll have an episode like next week focusing on Yang, and then the week after that it'll be an episode focused on Blake. So it's going to be multiple stories being told in different episodes and slowly progressing to a central point. So majority of this season of RWBY might just be seeing these characters coming to terms with what they have lost in the recent months, and also them journeying to find out their new path. We might not even have all these characters in the same place for the rest of the season. That might not even happen. So this is kind of more of a character development season of RWBY, along with a slash of adventure. And I'm all for that. I'm all for world building and adventure in a series, and it's something I've been fascinated about with RWBY for a long time. I want to know more about the world. I want to see how it is outside of what we've already seen so far. So it's already cranking up to be a very good season, especially the direction, how different it is from having just all our cast of characters in one episode. Now they're going to have their individual stories progressing in each episode. So let's talk about, I guess, the fight in general. So the fight, we had it to where it was a job for RWBY and them. They had to handle it. They took down this, you know, Grimm that apparently went inside of these rocks, and it could actually, you know, grab other objects like a tree or something and turn it into its limbs. And this is an interesting type of enemy that was introduced in this episode, which might prove to be very powerful in the future if there's a lot of them, you know, going inside of objects and controlling them. So I like how also Rooster Teeth is, like, you know, introducing new type of enemies that will be in the series. Besides our main cast of villains, we also have these new little enemies and monsters and stuff that they'll have to deal with on their journey. And eventually, after that entire fight was done, we move over into the blacksmith, this like bull blacksmith, but badass design, by the way. Love his design. That scene was so funny and sad at the same time. Like, let's talk about the funny part and then the sad part. So John, he removes his breastplate. He finally gets an upgrade, and on his shirt, yes, this man has a cute shirt on, and Ruby's laugh, like, at first, I didn't laugh, okay? I didn't find it like, okay, the man has a cute shirt. It's a cute little shirt for a child. At first, I didn't really, you know, laugh. But Ruby's laugh, the way she was just laughing her ass off, and she was just smiling and laughing at him because of this shirt. And I started to laugh alongside of her because it was just such a great laugh. I just had to bust a gut as well. So, definitely a good laugh and great happy moment for what was about to happen after that. So, John, he carries on the legacy of Pyrrha by using some of her equipment to make his new armor set. And you even see the symbol. And it's sad. It's a very sad representation, letting us know that she is dead. And I mean, there is a possibility, before everything is said and done with the season or series in general, Pyrrha might come back. That is a likely possibility. But to be honest with you, as I said before in my previous season, even though I like her character, even though I like Pyrrha quite a bit, she's one of my personal favorites, I don't want her to return. I don't. And the big point of why I say this is because it lets us know that this is when RWBY changed for good. This is when the series RWBY changed into a more of a mature show, where the tone shifted, and the character's death has so much meaning to a lot of characters, to all of our cast, but even Cinder in general, because if it wasn't for Cinder attacking Pyrrha and killing her, that wouldn't have happened to Cinder. Cinder wouldn't be in the state she's currently in, so it offers that redemption to her, or development, even alongside of John, too, having to grow and all this. There's just so much development to be had from her death. I don't want her coming back and kind of just that not having the same weight or meaning of what it did. And I mean, maybe one day down the road there might be an episode where I say, yeah, maybe she needs to come back. But at this time, no, I feel like she shouldn't. I don't think she should come back this season. I feel like we should go through an entire season, or at least 2 seasons, of her not coming back and having her characters have to deal with the pain of loss, and how death is kind of permanent in this series, and they just don't come back. There's like no plot armor for some characters. So hopefully she stays dead for the time being, and we see our characters develop. And the way John got his new armor, and it's kind of like he's carrying on the legacy of her, it's like letting us know he's trying to move on. He's still continuing forward. So yeah, overall, the new season of RWBY, spectacular. A spectacular new start of RWBY. I'm excited to see the continuation of this. I'm excited for episode 2 next week. Oh, my first impressions, yes, very, very good first impressions of the new season. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.